I'm going to now turn the evening, which has been so inspirational. I'm going to turn it over to someone who will put the exclamation point on the end of this inspirational evening. And by the way, as I do that, don't forget that you still have the silent auction that you can check out. And you can toast all of the awardees in your own way. But now I want to welcome Ed Ducker III, president of Reinventor Capital. He's also an SBN board member and a friend. Ed, take the floor.
Oh, thank you so much, Robin. First of all, I think I'd like to do some thank yous. Let's start with the staff who put this together. I think they did an amazing job. You know, those who selected the awardees, even a more amazing job. I think also that I'd like to do a special thank you to Lori Hamill, who is my soul brother and who has led this effort forever and brings such energy and leadership to this effort in general. And finally, I'd like to thank the awardees. The awardees, I think there have been several words that have been used. They're inspirational, the word hope. They give us a sense of hope. I think that in many ways, they're the best. They represent the best of what America is all about. Small business being the engine for our economy. They, in their own way every day, I'm sure this is not something they think about, and yet they are in fact, I believe, sort of the dream deferred for many generations that came before you, that you have finally realized for them and realized for us what America is all about sort of at its best. And so definitely thank you for being the leaders, the path makers, the inspiration that you are for us. But I think there's also sort of a common thread that I keep hearing that doesn't really sort of come through in the same way. And that thread has to do with shared privilege. And I want to tell a story that sort of brings this into focus. It's a personal story. So instead of the poem that's listed here, I'm going to tell this story to make my point. I was invited or called to my principal's office when I was a senior in high school. By way of background, this was unusual because I was a good student. I was a top student in school. I was a top athlete. In fact, I was in the throes of being recruited for football to Ohio State. And so I was baffled by the fact that the principal had called me. The other thing that's important to this story is that I grew up in a Black community, an all Black community, a middle class, single family homes. The school I went to from the time I was in kindergarten through 12th grade were Black schools in Black neighborhoods, all of which had Black teachers and Black coaches. And so as I reached the principal's office, I was surprised to see a young white man there who my principal introduced me to as Pete Hart. Now, Pete Hart felt very much out of place. Pete Hart had come to my high school unannounced and uninvited. And when I was introduced to him, the principal left the office. Pete and I spoke briefly, but Pete shared with me that he was a recruiter, a volunteer recruiter for Harvard, who didn't live in the area. But on that particular day, he decided that he would peel off from the other recruiters and go to this Black high school, literally across the tracks. Again, uninvited, unannounced. At the end of our brief conversation, he said to me, I want you to come to a citywide reception for Harvard, and I want you to bring your parents. My father and I went, we're the only Black folks there. Pete Hart came back to that event, make sure we were comfortable, and at the end of which he asked me to apply to Harvard. I did. I got in. But the story that I want to underscore here is that I don't know if Pete Hart ever did that again. I don't know how much it meant to him. I don't know whether it was a big deal for him or a little bit of deal. But in doing that, he changed my life. He, that day, shared his privilege by coming to my high school and making a big difference, a fundamental difference in my life. And so in the stories that I have not heard from the awardees, but I'm sure exist, is the way in which they have shared privilege along the way. Shared privilege, I define, opportunity I define is shared privilege. By sharing privilege, we create opportunities for others. And so part of what you do in your businesses every day, I am sure, is share that privilege that makes a difference in people's lives that you don't even know. And so I encourage us to do that. And I thank you for the awardees in particular for doing it. I'm sure there are many stories along that way. I'm sure they could tell their own story about how someone created an opportunity for them as well. And so on that note, I'd like to just challenge folks, share a little privilege. It goes a long way. So thank you very much. Enjoy the evening.